Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the forever home for all of his people, width and its length and its height all equal. Golden and glorious, gated and regal, a barn for his sheep to forever sleep peaceful. Beautiful in elevation, it will be a better nation, suitable for salvation. Better get your reservation. He is making preparation for the day he shakes creation. It will be a celebration in a promised destination. It's a haven of the heavenly persuasion, safe for the day he will ready the occasion. Based on the measurements given in Revelation, we can do equations to give us an estimation. How many saints can feasibly reside and easily live inside of the kingdom he provides? If we try to evenly divide, the area he described will arrive. Come along for the ride. Down out of heaven from the Father's hand, to be embedded in the promised land. When he resurrects the honest man, we will relish what our God has planned. Let's examine how many mansions could he grant to the house that he planted. We can figure out and try to understand it, count the amount of all his encampments. If the New Jerusalem's 1,500 miles wide, 1,500 miles long, equal in its size, then each floor would be 2.25 million square miles from the border to the border. If the kingdom's 1,500 miles tall and the homes all had 10-foot walls, that's 792,000 floors. We will soon see how many rooms are in store. If each suite was 250,000 square feet, 250,000 square foot for the meek, then it's more than 250.9 million per floor in the city. Bear with me, it's a lot of mathematics, but we talking about some heavenly schematics. Get ecstatic for the Most High's real estate. It's dramatic what we calculate. Down out of heaven from the Father's hand, to be embedded in the promised land. When he resurrects the honest man, we will relish what our God has planned. Let's examine how many mansions could he grant to the house that he planted. We can figure out and try to understand it, count the amount of all his encampments. 250,905,600 houses times the floors in the mountain, multiply 792,000. That's the number of the mansions we're counting. It's 198 trillion, 717 billion. Then another 235,300,000, nearly 200 trillion. All with the 10-foot high ceiling spaces. So spacious are his dwelling places. And it's a tropic gems decorate his bases. His sanctuary will illuminate our faces. A capacious, set apart oasis. It's a tent that's eternal and tenacious. Good gracious, what a sight to see, where eternal life will be. Down out of heaven from the Father's hand, to be embedded in the promised land. When he resurrects the honest man, we will relish what our God has planned. Let's examine how many mansions could he grant to the house that he planted. We can figure out and try to understand it, count the amount of all his encampments. Hand, to be embedded in the promised land. When he resurrects the honest man, we will relish what our God has planned. Let's examine how many mansions could he grant to the house that he planted. We can figure out and try to understand it, count the amount of all his encampments.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. I want to thank you for joining us here today for our Sabbath fellowship stream. Shabbat Shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat Shalom, babe.
And I'm joined here by my lovely wife, Lindsay. And it's always an honor to do this with you. I appreciate it. You joining me for this?
It's an honor to be invited.
It's actually one of my prayers when I was younger. I don't even know if it was truly a prayer. It was like an unspoken inward desire that I never even thought I would have the audacity to pray, because it seems so out of reach. Right? It's like, it's like praying for that Bill Gates money, because you're just like, bro, really? It's like that'll never happen. Like, it's out of reach,
Yeah.
right? For me to think that I would have a wife that wants to study the Bible with me, that wants to speak and talk about the Bible with me, that actually puts up with how much I speak and talk about the Bible, that just seemed out of reach. And I thought I was just going to have to compromise for something else, right? And I had this part of me always stifled, but the Father knew, and it's a blessing to have you here, interested in this stuff with me. So thank you, sweetie.
It's a blessing to be here.
Yeah.
It was all him.
Big shout out to Wes Blaze. Thank you for all that you do, Wes Blaze. I appreciate you, brother. You are a awesome brother in the faith, and happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah. Appreciate you, bro. All right. Hey, Juan, thank you so much for the generous support, man. Thank you. Appreciate your
Thanks, brother.
super chat. Thank you for that, man. All right. So last week we got highly interrupted. We were trying to get through Daniel 1 through 3.
Did we want to mention the fundraiser in the description?
Yes, we do, guys. We're still raising support for Dustin Hall and his family. He suffered a tragic accident and broke his femur bone, which is like one of the biggest bones in your body, if not the biggest, and extremely painful. Lots of recovery time, and he's not been able to work as normal. So he's normally taking care of his family, normally providing in all the ways, full-time worker and all that kind of stuff. No issues with being lazy or nothing like that. He's a good man of God. And so we would ask if God puts it on your heart and you have the extra in your budget to go and find a place for charity and to give to those in need. He's a good brother in the faith. And we have the video. His Give, Send, Go is in the video description below. We had it there last week as well, but we just want to kind of remind folks that it's still there. They're still trying to reach their goal. Thank you so much to everyone who's already helped them with their goal from last week, but his needs are still there because he's trying to cover, like, I'm guessing, at least 2 or 3 months of family needs, because he can't work because he's just laid up with a broken femur. So if it's on your heart, that's a great qualified place for your alms. So check that out in the video description. Amen. So what's up?
I said amen.
Last week we were trying to do Daniel 1 through 3. We got a little interrupted because our son woke up probably midway through, and we couldn't get to the rest. So today we're just gonna do chapters 2 through 4. Abba willing. We'll do chapters 2 through 4.
Wait, didn't we read chapter 2 last time?
Yeah, but we didn't get to provide commentary, take our time and think about it. Okay. We had a ton of distractions, so we're gonna start with 2, 3, and 4 today.
As you wish, Papa Bear.
So let's check this out here. Okay. So in chapter 2, we see, in the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams that troubled his spirit, and sleep escaped him. So the king gave orders to summon the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to explain his dream. When they came and stood before the king, he said to them, "I've had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to understand it." Then the astrologers answered the king in Aramaic, "O king, may you live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation." The king replied to the astrologers, "My word is final. If you do not tell me the dream and its interpretation, you will be cut into pieces, and your houses will be reduced to rubble. But if you tell me the dream and its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and its interpretation." They answered a second time, "Let the king tell the dream to his servants, and we will give the interpretation." The king replied, "I know for sure that you're stalling for time, because you see that my word is final. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one decree for you. You have conspired to speak before me false and fraudulent words, hoping the situation will change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I will know that you give me its interpretation." The astrologers answered the king, "No one on earth can do what the king requests. No king, however great and powerful, has ever asked anything like this of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. What the king requests is so difficult that no one can tell it to him except the gods, whose dwelling is not with mortals." This response made the king so angry and furious that he gave orders to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out that the wise men were to be executed, and men went to look for Daniel and his friends to execute them. When Arioch, commander of the king's guard, he went out to execute the wise men of Babylon, Daniel responded with discretion and tact. "Why is the decree from the king so harsh?" he asked. Then Arioch explained the situation to Daniel. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him some time. so that he could give him the interpretation. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, urging them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his friends would not be killed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision, and he blessed the God of heaven and declared, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and power belong to him. He changes the times and seasons. He removes the kings and establishes them. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, because you have given me wisdom and power, and now you have made known to me what I've requested. For you have made known to us the dream of the king." Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Bring me before the king, and I will give him the interpretation." Arioch hastily brought Daniel before the king and said to him, "I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who will tell the king the interpretation." The king responded to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in the dream, as well as its interpretation?" Daniel answered the king, "No wise man, enchanter, medium, or magician can explain to the king the mystery of which he inquires. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the latter days. Your dream and the visions that came into your mind as you lay in your bed were these. As you lay on your bed, king, your thoughts turn to the future, and the revealer of mysteries made known to you what will happen. And to me, this mystery has been revealed, not because I have more wisdom than any man alive, but in order that the interpretation might be made known to the king, that you may understand the thoughts of your mind. As you, O king, were watching, a great statue appeared. A great and dazzling statue stood before you, and its form was awesome. The head of the statue was pure gold, its chest and arms were silver, its belly and thighs were bronze, its legs were iron, and its feet were part iron and part clay. As you watched, a stone was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and crushed them. Then the iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold were shattered and became like chaff on the threshing floor in summer. The wind carried them away, and not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that had struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, are the king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given sovereignty, power, strength, and glory. Whoever the sons of men or beasts of the field or birds of the air dwell, he has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. But after you, there will arise another kingdom, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule the whole earth. Finally, there'll be a fourth kingdom as strong as iron, for iron shatters and crushes all things. And like iron that crushes all things, it will shatter and crush all things. And just as you saw the feet and toes were made partly of fired clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet some of the strength of iron will be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with clay, so the peoples will mix with one another, but will not hold together any more than iron mixes with clay. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will shatter all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, but will itself stand forever. And just as you saw a stone being cut out of the mountain with human hands, and it shattered the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold, so the great God has told the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and the interpretation is trustworthy. At this, King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face and paid homage to Daniel, and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Your God is truly the God of gods and the Lord of kings, the revealer of mysteries, since you were able to reveal this mystery." Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many generous gifts. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to manage the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained in the king's court. All right. Big chapter.
Yes.
A lot here.
Yeah.
A lot here. What's the first thing that pops up to you, sweetie?
I don't even hear anything.
It's the mailman.
Okay. It's like he's got a sensor in his little brain.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking about first was, man, God really had to be the one to bring Nebuchadnezzar into success and glory, because just based on this, he seems like a pretty impulsive guy. It's like, I think you've got to have some, hey, I think you've got to have some self-control to be such a great military leader. So it's just kind of funny to watch these snippets of his life like this and see him be showing the fact that he doesn't actually trust all the wise men and the magic of Babylon, because either he just doesn't believe it like fully, or he's had enough experiences with charlatans, because that's a real problem in the world of spiritualism, that he's like, no, anytime he goes to a medium, he's like, no, the medium's got to tell me what's in my head first and then tell me what is in my head, what that means. So there's all that. And then he's so violent and angry that he's like, oh, you can't tell me the dream, I'm killing all of you. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, it's interesting to think about the psychology of a person like this, because this would make him seem like someone who is not capable of being such a strong military king leader.
Well, some would argue that in the ancient times, this actually would be perfect for a warlord to make these type of rash decisions, to threaten people with, I'm going to kill you, everyone you know, and burn your houses down to rubble if you don't do what I want. Like, that is a tyrant warlord.
Yes, to me, it seems counterproductive to actually follow through on it. Like, why would you want to kill all the wise people in your civilization? That just seems it takes me back to Stalinism. It takes me back to, Stalin having great victories and then killing all the men in his army who brought him that victory, because then he was like, well, I can't trust any of you because I have to be the supreme leader now. So that was like what it was making me think. I was like, that seems really like a bad strategy, but what do I know? I'm definitely not an ancient warlord.
Yeah, it was through absolute force. I mean, this is where the modern constructs of most first world nations today that are not under types of monarchies, they can't get away with this because there's bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah.
So while it hurts the citizen, it also hinders the leaders from making rash decisions like this as well.
Yeah.
Having governing councils, boards, senates, parliaments, that type of thing. While they're annoying and they're not biblical in its entirety as they're set up. Yes, a council of elders is biblical, but specifically a Congress or a parliament is not. So it does at the same time become an effective buffer to a tyrannical king.
Yeah.
Because they have to overcome so many different hurdles of other people who have some sense of power within that system, that they just don't have full autocratic monarchical power.
Yeah.
Like this guy, guy. Right. So that's, I am grateful to live in that type of country. I don't want to live under the king of Saudi Arabia. You can just have you disappeared at a whim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is an interesting mindset to go back to, and I'm David obviously being Daniel obviously just asking the most logical question ever, like, bro, why is this such a harsh judgment? Like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, what, you coming to kill me for what?
Yeah.
What's going on here? So there's definitely not equal weights and measures or just judgment that's happening. There's definitely not the wisdom that's applied to someone that's being a good, righteous king. Now this is interesting because we're getting this insight into Nebuchadnezzar, and we're going to see his character arc later, and how he actually get humbled by Yahweh.
Right.
And I hope going forward after that, he changed his mind on how he behaves like that. But he definitely gets humbled for sure. It's interesting that this, for whatever sticks out to me, all these people are mentioned: magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers. But it's the astrologers who have the main conversation with the king.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, right? Because they're all synonymously called wise men. Okay. What about the wise men from the east at Christ's birth? Right. What did they do? They saw the star in the sky.
Yes.
Like an astrologer would.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So it's just interesting that, I'm not giving credit to astrology as we know it today.
Sure.
Because that is full of charlatan activity and nonsense interpretation. But it's interesting that the astrologers are having this conversation, because it's like he had a dream. He didn't see something in the stars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And asking for an interpretation of that.
Yeah.
He had a dream, right? But the astrologers, for whatever reason, out of all these people, are leading the conversation. And it, to me, from what I've seen, even just in modern Western culture, and how much stock people put in astrology, even to the point of that famous saying that billionaires use astrology
Yeah.
to make financial decisions. It's just a unique concept to say, oh, they don't typically deal in dreams, but yet they're the people that seem to be leading the conversation with the king as far as what you're asking no one can do.
I almost wonder if maybe back then they actually did deal in dreams. And what we know as astrology today is part of this new age movement, which is like a neo paganism, which is not necessarily authentic ancient paganism. I mean, a lot of these pagans these people who call themselves pagans these days would be horrified by the actual rituals of pagans back in the real ancient times. So I don't know. I mean, maybe back then astrology did, because I kind of thought of it as there's probably a way that they consult the stars. There's probably some sort of
Some
magic
mystical
within,
woo-woo.
yes, mystical woo-woo involved in consulting the stars. Like that's why they want to hear the dream, so that they can consult the stars about the dream. Now, how did that look back then? I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think it looked like astrology today, where we have like star charts and horoscopes and that kind of generic type of stuff. I mean, I think it's generic in its own way. It's
Well,
generic in a satanic way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like they might have had a different kind of, like, astrology might have looked a little bit different back then than it does today.
Well, we know it was used by the instruction to avoid it.
Mhm.
In Deuteronomy 4:19,
Yeah.
Yahweh says, "When you look to the heavens and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the hosts of heaven, do not be enticed about and worship what Yahweh your God is apportioned to all the nations under heaven."
Yep.
And the worship of the sun, moon, and stars went along with the gods that they named in attribution to those stars.
Yeah.
To those gods also they had prophetesses and priestesses who
Mhm.
gave
Mhm.
words from those gods that they went to, who were also called enchanters.
Yeah.
Or witches or sorcerers. So it's an interesting parallel there. It seems to be assuming lots of things within this title.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot there as far as this ancient culture, this ancient like vibe
Yeah.
of, oh, the king woke up this morning, he had this crazy dream, he's about to kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Like that is just yo, what kind of place
Yeah.
are you living in? That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. What I think is interesting as far as his personality goes, and having a toddler right now, this is at the forefront of my brain, right? Because he keeps having to remind these people. Where does he say? Where does he say it? Right here. Ugh, I can't believe I'm missing it. Yeah, right here. He keeps having to remind them, my word is final. I'm not changing my mind about this. If you
Yeah.
don't tell me my dream and its interpretation, I will kill you and everyone like you in the kingdom. Like when we have to talk to Levi and we're like, no, we're not going to do this right now. And then he keeps asking, and then he pulls out the please.
Oh, the please is very hard to overcome.
And I'm just, my heart just melts, and I'm just like, oh, whatever you want, little one. But then I have to remind myself, no, we got to be strong.
He's gonna learn that the please is my kryptonite.
Our word is final. Our word is final. So it's like he's having to talk to these men. He knows these men are going to bargain with him.
Yeah.
Right. And he's got to be strong with them to be like, no, my word is final.
Yeah.
And strong. So this is how much this dream disturbed him. And it seems as if he already kind of suspects they're just constantly giving him false and fraudulent words.
That's exactly it. That's where I'm like, I never would have noticed this before I became a believer and started to understand the actual techniques and strategies that are used by mediums, psychic mediums. Because it's such a placebo. Like you really, like most people who are going to a medium, they really want to hear certain things. And so they're going to have that confirmation bias no matter what. And I see that Nebuchadnezzar here is like, he has dealt with his fair share of, psychic mediums who were really just, doing a cold reading, So yeah, it's that it kind of makes me chuckle where he's like, no, you guys are going to tell me what the dream is. It seems when you don't know that about psychic mediums, when you don't know that kind of world and much about it, that might seem really, kind of random and weird, or just maybe a way to make sure that the person really knows. But it like definitely comes from a place of knowing, that profession is full of liars.
That's right. So the cold reading, in case people aren't familiar, will be once if Nebuchadnezzar started to tell them the dream, how he speaks about the dream, how he explains it, the hesitancy with which he explains this part versus the confidence in this part versus the sense of questioning about this part. All that is part of the cold reading, so that then they can determine and infer things within his own mind
Exactly.
and heart.
Yeah.
So that when they give some sort of made up BS answer, it resonates to him.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's true, but it just
Exactly.
resonates with
Yes.
him. And that's why they'll be like, oh, you go to, like, you see people on these televised medium shows,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, what they said just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. Because they know how to find the trigger words that hit certain emotions within you that create comfort and trust.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's charlatan work, right?
Yes.
It's falsehood.
Yeah.
And in order to bypass this process, Nebuchadnezzar is smart enough to say, nope, you got to tell me, got to tell me the dream.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there has been so little wisdom, I guess, given from these people over time that they don't even seem to be worth keeping around in Nebuchadnezzar's mind. I mean, apparently they're not giving him much wise guidance as it is.
Yeah, it's kind of
if he's just ready to throw the whole lot of them in the furnace, what good have they really done?
Okay, so it continues to go with, here comes Daniel. He comes on the scene. He's trying to save himself, his three friends, and of course, by consequence, he's going to save all the other wise men in Babylon. So
yeah.
these wicked men who are not serving Yahweh, who are charlatans, they get mercy applied to them through the salvation of Daniel.
Yeah.
What an amazing concept, right? So this is where it's interesting that he then gets the vision as he goes to sleep. The mystery was revealed to Daniel. Oh, I'm sorry. The mystery was revealed to Daniel when he went to sleep.
That's also interesting.
Right here. Where'd it go? Yeah. Verse 19. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel, and he blessed the God of heaven.
I also, if you scroll up just a touch, that's also really, I didn't notice when we read last week that
How could you? How could you? We had a child destroying everything behind us.
I'm going to repeat some of my commentary from last week. I do remember, but I just didn't notice this part where he explained the matter to his friends and urging them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his friends would not be killed with the rest of the wise men. So
yes.
Just, I guess it's just a moment. It's sometimes I forget that there are instances in the scriptures of people asking other people to pray for them and with them. So I think you can get so caught up in the argument online, or maybe I'm just in way too many Christian groups. I'm in way too many Christian groups that have Catholics and Prots in there together, because the argument over praying to Mary and the saints, and the Catholics coming in, it's totally normal to ask people to pray for you, and people be like, that's never in the scriptures. And I'm like, I guess I haven't really looked to see if it's in the scriptures, asking others to pray for you. But here it is. Not to say that the Catholics are right, obviously, guys. I should hope that goes without saying. I don't agree with praying to dead people. But people in real life, this is definitely, it's just nice to see, Daniel had some buddies with him out there to pray with.
Yep. Okay. The thing that popped into my mind, remember we talked about the background context to chapter 1. We already read chapter 1. It told us the time frame of which Daniel was brought into exile.
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked about last week that there's two different Nebuchadnezzars. So there's the Nebuchadnezzar of chapter 2 seems to be different from the one of chapter 1, because it talked about Nebuchadnezzar at the top of chapter 2 being in the second year of his reign. This event occurred. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But in chapter 1, it told us that Daniel was not even presented to Nebuchadnezzar for service as a counselor or wise man until after 3 years of training. Okay. So this means that Daniel and the three other Hebrews are already trained up and approved. Nebuchadnezzar is not a name for a person. It's a title for the king.
Okay.
Yeah. So just as in there's Xerxes 1 and 2,
mm-hmm.
there's Darius 1 and 2, there's Nebuchadnezzar 1 and 2. So if you can even go into general history books and you can see they have an established the Babylonian kings list history for Nebuchadnezzar 1 and Nebuchadnezzar 2.
Okay.
But unfortunately, with the scriptures, it doesn't denote that to us. I wish it would,
Yeah.
but it just calls him Nebuchadnezzar because it's
Isn't
the
that
king
kind
at
of the
the
same
time.
with Pharaoh? It
Exactly.
doesn't tell us exactly which
Exactly.
Pharaoh. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is why Yeshua is going to reign in the King David's moniker.
Okay.
I will raise up David, Ezekiel 37, 24 through 27, or excuse me, 37. I will raise up David to reign over my people.
Mhm.
It's not specifically David from the dead. It's Christ we know embodies David's throne.
Yeah.
And the title of the king or the throne of David to reign over Israel. So this is the way, this was the custom, if you will, with all monikers of popular and well-loved and respected kings, or extremely powerful tyrannical kings that accomplished a lot and took over a lot of things. So Nebuchadnezzar 1 has already taken over a lot of things. Okay. Nebuchadnezzar 2 is going to double down and take over more things
Yeah.
and be more tyrannical. And this is why he has this moment of pride later. I think it's in chapter 4. So just setting that background context for everybody. Okay. Daniel comes over there's 3 different waves of exile for the southern kingdom of Judah. Takes place approximately over a 20-year time span. David comes into Babylon.
Daniel?
Daniel comes into Babylon into exile in the first wave of exiles being taken over.
Okay.
So during this time of this 20 years, okay, Jeremiah is prophesying to both the people already in exile, like Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
and to the people still in Judah, and to the kings of Judah during that day, which I believe it was Jehoiachin, and then Jehoiakim, and then Zedekiah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's prophesying to all those people, you may as well give yourself over to Nebuchadnezzar. Go ahead. You're going into exile regardless. Quit drawing it out.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yes.
So this is all throughout Jeremiah. Okay. Jeremiah's scribe, Baruch, is in the background here too. He's alive. He's prophesying at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. So in the Apocalypse of Baruch, he has the same, it's in I think it's in chapter 2 through 4. He has the same type of vision of end times,
Mm-hmm.
second advent of Christ. Ezra later has the same type of vision of Daniel chapter 2 with the rock made without hands that the Messiah comes back on.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is the New Jerusalem, is the kingdom that destroys these kingdoms here. So I'm just trying to give people, like, if we could make a yearbook of prophets, okay, and you could put little like funny taglines below their yearbook picture, that would be hilarious. But this is the class of the Judah's exile, if I could call that yearbook with the name.
Okay.
Right. The class of Judah's exile. Here's the list of prophets and priests during that time, and here's their significant contribution, and here's the years in which they lived, and the years in which they prophesied, and when they went into exile, and all that. Like, I don't have time for that, but that would be a really fun, nerdy thing for me to do, is to create a whole little timeline breakdown of here's the class of Jeremiah. Ezekiel's alive, Daniel's alive, Baruch is alive,
Mm-hmm.
like Haggai's alive. There's a whole bunch of dudes that we see in the Bible, and they're all collected. They're all together, guys. Tobit and Tobias are still alive in the northern part of Ecbatana. So like there's a whole group of major prophets of Yahweh that are running around prophesying, speaking the words of the Lord. Yahweh's doing incredible things through them, because this is an extremely hectic time of transition, but it's not overnight.
Yeah.
It's taking years. The Northern House invasion happened 70 to 80 years previous to the Southern exile. So over the whole time period from when, I think his name was Ashner Benapol. I think I could be wrong, but I think it's in like 2 Kings chapter 15 or something like that. No, it's not Ashner Benapol. That's somebody else. It's a very strange name. But anyway, Assyrian kings immediately started invading approximately 100 years before the last exile of the southern kingdom of Judah. So it's approximately a 100-year time span of the northern and southern houses in incremental stages being invaded, collected as captures, and then scattered into exile across the Babylonian kingdom. And so it's not happening overnight. So throughout all of this, Yahweh is sending them lots of prophets to assure them, to comfort them, to tell them to repent, to remind them of the promise of the covenant, like we talked about last time, which is if you continue to keep the commandments of the covenant, no matter which nation you get exiled into, I will protect you. I'll give you favor in the eyes of your captors. And that's what we're seeing literally coming true right here in Daniel chapter 2, where Daniel's moment, this is his big moment. Spotlight's coming on Daniel now.
Yeah.
He put himself forward to say, I'll do this.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and begs God at home.
Yeah.
Please, Father, please let me do this. Right?
I'm counting on you, Lord.
But obviously, Daniel comes from the class of Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Daniel comes from an era of men where he can confidently talk about the God who reveals mysteries.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he calls him. I serve a God who reveals mysteries. Right?
Yeah.
He knows this already. Right? He has this upbringing, so to speak, to where he understands, oh yeah, when I was a young kid, I was brought over into exile, but like Jeremiah was running around in Israel prophesying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he was revealing mysteries to people and calling the king's business out and getting persecuted for it. And like Ezekiel's alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all these, this was they know that God can do this through the prophets, and it's not like it's not a problem. And so it's interesting that he puts himself forward in the spotlight because this is the moment that's going to change his life forever.
Yeah.
And cause him to literally enjoy the blessing of Yahweh's promise in the covenant, which is, even though you may be scattered in the land of your enemies, if you continue to be faithful to the covenant as much as you can, be faithful to the covenant, even to the point of if they build a big statue and try to get you to worship a false idol, don't bow down to it, right? So there is a dividing line. He doesn't just blend into Babylon completely.
Right.
There is a line of distinction, but he's still remaining faithful to the covenant as much as he can, while honoring the king of his captor.
There's some assimilation that that he is consenting to.
Yes. And Yahweh has given him favor in the eyes of his captor.
Yeah.
And this is that turning point moment, which the whole chapter is a validation of Yahweh's words of promise. And here we see it doesn't say, like, I'm giving my commentary to draw your attention to this. I wish the chapter would do this, but it doesn't. It just expects you to know Leviticus 26. It expects you to have already known the words of Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 8. It expects you to know the promises given to Israel by Yahweh. And if you don't, you can read chapter 2, and all this just seems like, oh, wow, what an interesting little adventure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But actually, it's Yahweh fulfilling his word of promise. No matter where you are, no matter which nation you're scattered to, and I'm speaking to everyone listening who's scattered to all these other nations that don't worship Yahweh in the here and now. If you remain faithful to the covenant as much as you can, Yahweh will fight for you. He'll give you favor in the eyes of your captors. And unless it's some sort of extreme prophesied time of persecution, like Revelation 14. So I just want to encourage you guys. This is Yahweh proving his word true in the days of Daniel, not because he's just trying to one-up Nebuchadnezzar, but because it's part of his covenant. It's already built into the agreement with Daniel, is that, hey, you remain faithful, I'll fight for you. So I think it's a beautiful thing to me. It's just absolutely beautiful. And by the way, this whole thing about the statue, and it's mixed up with different concepts, different kingdoms, and it's destroyed by this fourth kingdom that shatters it. Again, this is also prophesied by Baruch and Ezra. Same concept.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty amazing. Specifically because of 2 Ezra chapter 11 goes into the idea of like this unique prophecy of this eagle with wings and feathers that are different sizes and things like that. And I think that's interesting because it's a part of this last kingdom in the end times.
Yeah.
And so this is what Daniel's saying. Oh yeah, King Nebuchadnezzar, the God of heaven, turned your mind towards the future and showed you all this stuff in the future. I've heard people try to say that this interpretation here, that it's the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, because it's people mixed with, as the words say, it's people mixed one with another. Some people will try to say, oh, this is Israel mixed with, in dispersion, mixed with other people, so therefore they don't mix. I'm not sure that's what it's talking about. They'll try to say, oh yeah, it's scattered Israel, so that's why they don't mix, and that's why they're hated everywhere they go.
I mean, honestly, living in the time of this forced melting pot, like I think I didn't quite realize until God started kind of opening my eyes to these things I've been talking about with you in scripture that I'm noticing. There's a way that mankind has always done things, like with government and monarchies and warfare and all that kind of stuff, until around the 1700s, when we have this, the Enlightenment, the Great Awakening, and all these more modern versions of what the Greeks and Romans tried to start with their republics. And so it's just interesting to look at America and see how I can remember being taught that it was called an experiment in terms of the melting pot. The
Mhm.
melting pot concept in itself was an experiment. That never really like sunk in with me. What does that mean? Because as I look through history, like cultures clash.
Yes, it is.
Cultures and societies clash, man. And there are some cultures and societies that cannot coexist peacefully. And it's interesting to read this verse and think about how there does seem to be a deliberate agenda of forcing the clashing of cultures through all of the illegal immigration. And I'm not just saying that from a political conservative standpoint. Like I'm just talking about just like a sociology standpoint, basically.
Well, it's being expedited, like it's being enhanced on
Yes.
steroids.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's because the melting pot with America, I think, is something that works under the concept of people still assimilate to a certain point, to a certain extent when they come here. Like, yeah, you can still have Chinatown, you can still have Little Italy but for the most part, people assimilate in all these other ways where they can still hold on to many parts of their culture, but there is a wider shared American culture that for a very long time, it was thought that's part of the thing you're proud of to come and do and learn as when you're legally immigrating here and becoming a citizen. And that is, we've seen commentators been talking about it for a couple years, actually, how that shared culture is starting to disappear,
Right.
not just from immigration. Of course, the internet and social media and streaming services and all that has kind of changed things as well. But definitely watching the forced bringing together of different, completely opposite, completely opposing cultures.
Yeah.
I'm definitely seeing the peoples that are not mixing. I'm like, I wonder if this last one could be this, globalist
This 2030 agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the worldwide.
To water down all the first world nations with third world nations.
Yeah, to remove all the sovereignty from the semblances of sovereignty we have as it is from our current nations. There is definitely a dismantling of this. There's been a dismantling over the last 300-400 years of this concept of kingdoms for sure. But yeah, it definitely has me thinking differently as I read this post right now. And I think about all that's happening in the world with, peoples that are mixing together that can't seem to mix very well.
Yeah. There's the unique observation of everyone that seems to hate Western society and culture seems to be, they have this built-in indoctrination of socialist communism mentality.
Yeah.
That also seems to not have any problem with Islam and Sharia law.
Yes,
which is hilarious to me.
I think that actually makes not so strange bedfellows.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and that's why take away the oil money from some of these Arab countries, and what would you have?
Yeah.
What society would you have where they still have monarchs? And right now they have a couple societies where, like UAE and Saudi Arabia, even the country of Jordan, where the kings, the monarchs are supposedly
they're democracy.
They're they're supposedly giving large amounts of money back to the peoples through certain types of UBI, certain types of government institutions, the way they build their roads and institutions and medical facilities and free healthcare, because it's all flowing down from the king, and he's willing to give that because he has hundreds of $billions of excess through the oil money, right? So, but again, that's because they have one commodity, right? You take that away, what are the people doing to create industry and business that could be self-sustaining? If that one commodity went away, they wouldn't be able to afford any of that stuff, and to live in that supposed socialist utopia. They wouldn't be able to afford any of that stuff or live like that if you took that one commodity away. And so that's where it becomes a very unique, another type of modern experiment where you have a monarch that rules over a socialist type society based off a capitalist sale of a specific commodity, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're already blending political ideologies and governing structures, just like modern day China decided, okay, we need to encourage the marketplace and allow people to own homes and allow people to invest and allow. So they relaxed on a lot of communist things in order for people to engage in some sort of capitalism, but yet they still call themselves a communist party.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're known as a communist ruling government over China. Right.
Yes, the CCP.
Nobody would call China a democratic republic like the United States, or a representative republic, I should say. So it's kind of interesting. You see this blending of ideologies, of the concept of them trying to force cultures to go into other countries, specifically to disrupt the culture in that country and the economy in that country and a whole bunch of other stuff. Because to me, it just brings everything down, right?
Yeah.
The chaos, the miscommunication, the lack of assimilation, it just brings all the countries down financially to where then the international bankers can then have more control. Because I mean, to me, it's just like we're at war with not just someone that's firing bullets, with war with people that are waging the pen against us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the interest rates against us.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember like why the, I'm gonna, for the sake of censorship, I suppose I'll call them the people who adhere to a single star flag. Do you remember why they were kicked out of all these countries for the past 400 or 500 years? Because of the usury, lending to the kings, charging interest to them.
Oh, you're going down the forbidden rabbit hole, baby.
But just the other day, they're saying that the United States owes more in interest than the GDP of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We owe more than that in interest to foreign bankers. Well, who's the foreign bankers? So again, this concept of usury, which the Bible condemns, is being used to control nations, right?
Yeah.
So it is a unique concept of trying to figure out ways over time. And I don't think they've got it figured out, or they'd have already tried to really accomplish it, but they're trying to figure out ways because people are stubborn and obstinate, but they're trying to figure out ways with all these people, different cultures that do not mix, like you're talking about, to actually control them all single-handedly, right? Instead of having a liberal economic order and expecting other nations to come to the table and agree to their terms. They're just trying to force them into financial subjugation, and so they can control them all single-handedly. And of course, the use of AI is going to be implicit in that as well. But I personally don't think that this is talking about just mixing a bunch of people together in a specific geographical territory, because the people are referenced as clay, not the iron. The iron seems to be the governance. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not saying I have the perfect translation on this, but to me, I start to think it might have more to do with the end times kingdom of the beast, who is ruling with like iron, because he's going and persecuting the nations.
Yeah.
Every nation, according to Revelation 13.
A rod of iron is like a term for that.
Which shatters the clay
ruthless-
pots, right? This is attributed to Christ when he returns, and how he subjugates all the nations under his control. But basically, it's just not going to work. This is why I've continued to try to say to people, the first beast in Revelation 13 that would fulfill this last kingdom, of which this stone that comes down out of heaven crushes. The first beast of Revelation 13, he tries to take over all nations, but he will not.
Yeah.
He cannot do it.
Yeah.
He doesn't have enough power. He doesn't have enough time. But he tries. And there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of warfare. There's a lot of death, a lot of subjugation and persecution of believers, but he's not successful because for the biggest reason that Christ comes back and interrupts the process.
Yeah.
But two, even within that, there are people who reject his mark and will be killed and will not assimilate.
Yeah.
They will not join in this. So that's kind of my favorite interpretation, if you will. Right. And the reason I'm spending time on this is not just because it's a big chapter, because this is a highly discussed prophecy in the book of Daniel.
Oh, absolutely.
Like this is a big part of the book of Daniel that people want to know about.
Yes.
So I'm not just trying to take extra time for the sake of hearing my own self talk, but just the fact that like this, people are going to have these questions about this chapter.
It's worth addressing. I mean, if we were to just move on and not really address it, I think we'd probably get a lot of angry comments in the chat.
Yeah. So so we've tried to cover for you, in case you're still listening, we've tried to cover for you the idea that We've addressed the stone that comes out of heaven, what we think that is. We've addressed how Christ comes with that stone to establish eternal peace on the earth at that time. We've addressed what we feel like this fourth kingdom that becomes later is fulfilled during the time period of the 42 months before Christ's return, which is also covered in prophecies from Revelation as well. And so there's some interesting aspects here, but we're not given like a direct one-to-one breakdown on who's iron, who's bronze, who's clay, who's silver and gold. But we just know that these kingdoms will not last because Christ's kingdom will stand forever.
Yeah, and his kingdom destroys all the kingdoms of the world. So that was a very overlooked detail in some doctrines in this walk. I also thought it was interesting that we have this awkward moment here where Nebuchadnezzar has incense and an offering brought before Daniel. It's like, gosh, what did that look like? I mean, I'm sure Daniel, I'm assuming Daniel said, I cannot accept worship. Like, that's a big no-no. And maybe they just didn't record it in here for us.
Well, the incense is weird.
Well, and an offering.
Well, this could be a gift,
Fell on his face,
I know,
paid homage to Daniel in order that an offering and incense be brought.
I get it.
An offering isn't like, if it was a gift, there is a difference between gifts in scripture and offering. So offering is definitely
this is also a
worship
gift.
language.
He gave him many generous gifts. I get
it.
So yeah, I'm also guessing, especially because we're going to read Bell and the Dragon after we read Daniel, like we announced last week. So I get it that I don't think that Daniel accepted this either.
Yeah.
I think that would have been very antithetical to his heart, that God just
he
allowed him to, through the heart of Daniel, allowed him to be the recipient of this revealer of mysteries.
Yeah, I would think he would have had to have just politely, because he's very polite and respectful to the kings of Babylon, but politely decline. I mean, whatever that looked like, having an offering brought before him.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that looks like either. I don't know if this was some sort of like induction ceremony to become an administrator.
It's possible,
right? Kind of like you have the ordination of the priest,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what it was. If that's what him saying, "Oh, I'm going to put you in a greater esteem and service in my court," because he made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's just offering an incense is very clearly,
the language is weird and it doesn't explain.
Language.
So yeah, I wouldn't assume either that David or that Daniel allowed false worship to him. I wouldn't assume that either, but I just wonder if there's more going on as far as him getting a higher level of status in the kingdom and a higher position of authority. So I thank you so much, Nathan Mananin. Am I saying that right? I can't read that. Menanin, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you've been a member for 12 months. That's what it's highlighting for me. I was trying to figure out why is it. It's just highlighting his comment because he's been a member for 12 months.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your membership. All right, guys. So I didn't see anything else in this chapter that I wanted to speak on. Is there anything else before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Chapter 3. Would you like to read this one?
I guess you've been reading.
But I would love for you to read this one.
All right.
And I'll take 4.
Okay. King Nebuchadnezzar made a golden statue 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and he set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then the king sent word to assemble the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other officials of the provinces to attend the dedication of the statue he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue that the king had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "O people of every nation and language, this is what you are commanded. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the golden statue that the king has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship it will immediately be thrown into the blazing fiery furnace." Therefore, as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, The people of every nation and language would fall down and worship the golden statue that the king had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and maliciously accused the Jews, saying to the king, O king, may you live forever. You, O king, have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of all these instruments and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the golden statue, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into the blazing fiery furnace. But there are some Jews you have appointed to manage the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have ignored you, O king, and have refused to serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up. Then the king, furious with rage, summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and he said to them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden statue I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the instruments, if you are ready to fall down and worship the statue I have made, very good. But if you refuse to worship, you will be thrown at once into the blazing fiery furnace. Then what God will be able to deliver you from my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O king, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If the God whom we serve exists, then he is able to deliver us from the blazing fiery furnace and from your hand, O king. But if he does not, let it be known to you that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up. At this, the king was filled with rage, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times hotter than usual, and he commanded some mighty men of valor in his army to tie up the 3 men and throw them into the blazing fiery furnace. So they were tied up, wearing robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, and they were thrown into the furnace. The king's command was so urgent that the furnace so hot that the fiery flames killed the men who carried up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these 3 men, firmly bound, fell into the blazing fiery furnace. Suddenly the king jumped in amazement and asked his advisers, Did we not throw 3 men firmly bound into the fire? Certainly, O king, they replied. Look, he exclaimed, I see 4 men, unbound and unharmed, walking around in the fire, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Then the king approached the door of the fiery furnace and called out, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. So the 3 men came out of the fire, and when the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors had gathered around, they saw that the fire had no effect on the bodies of these men. Not a hair of their heads was singed, nor their robes were unaffected, and there was no smell of fire on them. The king declared, Blessed be the God of these 3 men, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. They violated the king's command and risked their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything offensive against these 3 men will be cut into pieces and their houses reduced to rubble, for there is no other God who can deliver in this way. Then the king promoted the 3 men in the province of Babylon.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for reading that.
You're welcome.
All right.
I got a little, gets my mouth all dry.
So this is the famous story. The 3 Hebrews thrown in the fire. They're rescued. I think it's the prayer of Azariah. I think that's what it is, where the angels explains like, or one of the guys in his prayer, Azariah explains. It's another small apocryphal book called the Prayer of Azariah. One of the 3 Hebrews is talking about this event and how the angel created like a bubble of water around them, and that's what protected them in there.
Wow.
It's interesting claim. But yeah, this is the famous passage, right, where not even fire can destroy you if the Father wants to save you. So it's very interesting. People, of course, can apply all types of future prophetic implications to the resurrection and avoiding the lake of fire and all that kind of stuff, right? Because God saves you out of the fire, that type of thing. Not even having the smell of smoke on your clothes, right? That type of thing is amazing. Truly a supernatural event.
Yeah.
Happening in the sight of the king.
Yeah.
So this is like 2 now, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of like, this is like, we're going to be going through this rigmarole again, like we did with Pharaoh. Like, did you already forget, bro? Did you already forget that you paid homage to Daniel and were like, oh, you serve the God of all gods. Your God is clearly God. Like, how quickly you forget, my friend. Like, how is it the same Nebuchadnezzar too? Like, that's also what I'm wondering now that you reminded me that that's actually a title.
Well, to my memory, I believe it's just two Nebuchadnezzar 1 and 2, according to the history, before I think it's Darius that takes over next.
So are we assuming that it's always the same Nebuchadnezzar?
No, I just think in chapters 2 and 3, it's Nebuchadnezzar the second.
Okay.
And in chapter 1, it's Nebuchadnezzar the first.
Okay.
And I think in chapter 4, we get King Darius.
Okay.
Because he's the one who's concerned for Daniel when he's thrown in the lions.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, it's also interesting that where's Daniel in all of this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't bowing to the statue.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure where he is in all this.
This really makes me think about just the contrast of false gods and false god worship compared to our Lord, who does not say, worship me, or, you're going to be thrown. Well, I guess technically, if you don't worship him, you will end up in the lake of fire. But just the way in which he draws you in, it's just complete polar opposites, It's complete. This is just complete forced obedience, forced worship under threat of torture and death,
Yeah.
And it's just so different with our Father. It's just so different. Like, and everyone who's been called to him, knows that it's so, especially people like me, anyone out there who's had a former life in actual full on unbelief and new age spirituality and actually channeling demons and stuff, like, you start to get a feeling of the spirit that comes along with when you're channeling and you're in the new age versus the feeling of the actual spirit of God. And it's complete 100% difference, complete opposites. It was how I knew I was in the presence of Jesus when his spirit came upon me, because the spirit was totally different than all the spirits I had dealt with before. So it's just interesting to watch the contrast here of, this is, the kind of worship that Satan inspires, it's bow down or die,
Yeah, it's very blatant.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Yahweh allows his people to reject him for generations.
Yeah.
And then he's finally like, all right, I'm going to kick you out of my land. It's been long enough. So he's very merciful. And it's amazing to me, like, because the modern, atheist agnostic, they mock the scriptures, they mock God, and they say, oh, you just want me to worship your spaghetti monster in the sky type thing. Meanwhile, the alternative to Yahweh will kill you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like, you don't worship, you don't follow. I mean, just this is what we're seeing, though, with that, even in the modern political landscape in the United States, within the cancer culture, the left-wing ideology, which is now turned into, they actually want to do physical violence to those who disagree with them.
Yeah.
It's not just we need to cancel them anymore. It's we need to call them a Nazi so we can justify killing them.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird mentality, because why does this matter? I'm not just trying to bring politics up. It matters because this is what King Nebuchadnezzar has to address. What does he say at the very end here? He says, anyone who says anything offensive against the God of these three men, I will deal with like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he understands how slander, malicious accusation, the very thing that brought this up to begin with.
Yeah.
Where was it up here? Yeah. Yeah. The malicious accusation against, he knows what this leads to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It leads to people calling for the death of other people, right? This is why we're told to bridle our tongues, and we're not to be accusing people falsely, and or we're not supposed to be maintaining any type of maliciousness in our heart towards anyone, anyone at all, much less our fellow body of believers. I think this is why Paul has to reprimand the Corinthians who lived in Macedonia in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, by telling them, therefore, let us keep the feast with sincerity and truth instead of maliciousness and evil. Because it's a common thing that people can fall into, right? You have different people, like you just talked about. This has always been the case, by the way, in the Mediterranean area. Lots of different cultures mixed together. The average person that grows up in like Italy or Germany speaks five different languages. Like it's like United States, where we would travel to Louisiana, Kentucky, Illinois, like that's different countries over there, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a smaller group of land. So they learn several different languages growing up. It's always been a mixture, hodgepodge of people, but they maintain their boundaries and identities very well. But at the same time, you would have people coming into, like in the days of Paul, you have people coming into the fellowship in Corinth arguing about leadership and practices, creating malicious intent with each other and malicious problems. I mean, even Clement of Rome, after the death of Paul, is still addressing the argumentation that was taking place in the leadership in the church of Corinth in his letter to the Corinthians, written after Paul's death. So Paul is even addressing this 30 years earlier, or I should say 15 years earlier, as he's trying to tell them, hey, we should keep this feast with sincerity and truth, not with maliciousness. Right. In chapter 11, he has to admonish them for not coming together in peace and eating up all the food before everyone gets there.
Right.
You're like, bro, what are you doing? This is supposed to be a festival that we're going to put together for everyone to show up and eat at. And you're showing up drunk and eating everything and leaving before everyone gets here. What are you doing? Like, this is not what we're here for. So there is an interesting mindset here that even Nebuchadnezzar knows that within the kingdom, I'm going to have to protect these people from false accusation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big deal in my mind. Really, Levi? It's like an hour and 15 minutes. Not even an hour and 15 minutes. It's been a little over an hour. Your bottle's right there, baby. It's right in front of you. It's right in front of you. Yeah, grab that bad boy. Go back to sleep.
I made sure there was milk in it.
You did. Okay, we'll see what happens. Is there anything else in here that you would like to address or talk on?
No. I think that's.
I do wonder where David is as well. Was he on some sort
Daniel?
Daniel. was Daniel on some sort of like emissary trip somewhere? Like, I mean, it just makes you wonder, like, where is he in the backdrop of this? Would he have had the king's ear? What's going on? I guess
it does make me want to go look into how nations, how often this forced assimilation with religion, because every nation had a state religion. I mean, I wonder how often this happened, because I know that in some of my studies, I've found that the Romans are always complimented when it comes to this by historians who talk about the fact that the Romans were not very concerned about forcing everyone that they took over into their religion.
Yeah.
And the only reason that because people have looked at the whole issue with the Jews and the Christians, and how the Christians were separated from the Jews, and the Jews were not persecuted by Rome like the Christians were at that point in history.
Right.
And the question comes up as to why, and it's because Rome typically didn't have a problem with anyone's religion as long as you did some sort of kickback to them within whatever god you were worshiping. So Rome would actually have the Jews do offerings on behalf of Rome to the god of the Jews.
Yes.
And that was considered fine. They didn't force the Jews to give up their religion and didn't force the Jews to join theirs. But specifically the Christians would not compromise, and the Christians couldn't go in the temple. The temple was destroyed in 70 AD. So I don't know what the Romans were having the Jews do for them at that point. Maybe they were just so focused on the Christians by then.
Well,
but
there was a disdain in the Roman Empire for the Jews. They were suffering their own type of persecution.
So the Christians would not they wouldn't pay homage to Caesar. And that was like where they all of a sudden there was a religion that Rome could not abide.
Right. It was a big deal.
Yeah, and they didn't, and it's like they appear to be doing what Nebuchadnezzar. It's like they finally tried to force an assimilation on a people group, and the Christians were just continually like, no, we're not.
Yeah, and there was also syncretism within the Roman Empire. This is why you have the god of Hermanubis. So the Romans they saw that Anubis in Egypt was being worshipped in the same way that Hermes was.
Yes.
And so they just made the same god during the days of the Romans, Hermanubis.
Yeah.
So where they could syncretize, they tried. But like you said, in other places, they just said, okay, well, you can worship your own gods. Just we also consider our Caesars to be a type of god on earth. So you need to worship him too.
Right.
And they would set up busts to Caesar to be worshipped as well. So yeah, that became a problem for Christians for sure.
Yeah. It just makes me think about this.
But it's in line with this.
Yes, exactly. Right? And what I'm saying is like this is another aspect of mankind that seemed to be like a norm for most of our history, where it was like you took over a people group and you forced assimilation.
Right.
And that for most of human history, that meant within your religion, because your religion was how you governed everything. So Yeah, it's just it's just such a different time to be alive.
So as I announced in last week when we were reviewing chapter 1, I said after we finish the book of Daniel, we're going to read Bel and the Dragon, and I think it's is it Susanna? I keep forgetting the name of this lady. That other book,
Susanna, I thought.
Yeah, and we can also read the Prayer of Ezra if you want. It's very short; it's just a few paragraphs. But the Bel and the Dragon aspect supposedly was taken from chapter 3.
Okay.
So, to me, it would be interesting if Bel and the Dragon, because I think it's somewhere in here it's taken. I don't know if it was the beginning or at the end. I have to go look at my notes. But it's interesting because what that means, if you put Bel and the Dragon back into chapter 3, you would have Daniel. Daniel's in it, by the way. The whole thing is about Daniel speaking with Nebuchadnezzar and explaining to him through this like Columbo detective style events that Baal is a false god, and the dragon that you're worshiping is not a real god.
Yeah,
it can be killed, and so we're going to read that later. But so the dragon represented Satan, Baal represented Nimrod. Okay,
yeah,
the first beast, and then so here we have Nebuchadnezzar being shown by Daniel, and Daniel being venerated that these are not real gods.
Yeah,
right. But then he sets up a statue to himself.
Mm.
So, and forces people to worship that.
Yeah.
So in case you've ever asked yourself, why is Nebuchadnezzar setting up a statue to himself and not to their patron gods of Babylon?
Yeah.
Right? Because it seems a little like, wait a minute, you're putting yourself in front of these gods. How are, even within your own system and your own false religion, how are your gods going to view that? That doesn't seem respectful to your gods, right? You're not building a 90-foot golden statue to Molech, right? So like, why aren't you doing that? Well, if Bel and the Dragon is an accurate piece of what should have been in chapter 3 all this time, you would see Daniel here. He is refuting the main two patron gods that Babylon worshipped directly to Nebuchadnezzar, which is a big deal, guys. He's challenging the status quo of their head pantheon and being venerated by God to do so and protected by God to do so. But here's another aspect of their idolatry that is still unchecked, that Nebuchadnezzar has to be reprimanded on.
Yeah.
So in the largest form, just like with the Romans, right? In the largest form of how they applied false idolatry and forced people into their system, Nebuchadnezzar is being refuted by the Most High at every single point. And that's kind of like I think it's a travesty that Bel and Dragon will be taken out of this, personally. But anyway, so I can read chapter 4 if there's nothing else in this one you want to touch on.
No, I think we should get to chapter 4.
Okay, so chapter 4, verse 1, King Nebuchadnezzar, to the people of every nation and language who dwell on all the earth, may your prosperity be multiplied. I am pleased to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and flourishing in my palace. I had a dream and it frightened me. While I was in my bed, the images and visions in my mind alarmed me. So I issued a decree that all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners came in, and I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. But at last into my presence came Daniel, whose name is Belshazzar, after the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And I told him the dream, O Belshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and that no mystery baffles you. So explain to me the vision I saw in my dream and their interpretation. In these visions of my mind, as I was lying in my bed, I saw this come to pass. There was a tree in the midst of the land, and its height was great. The tree grew large and strong. Its top reached the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, and its fruit was abundant, and upon it was food for all. Under it the beasts of the field found shelter, and in its branches the birds of the air nested, and from it every creature was fed. As I lay in my bed, I also saw visions of my mind. I saw in the visions of my mind a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called out in a loud voice, cut down the tree and chop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it and the birds from its branches, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, with a band of iron and bronze around it, in the tender grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven and graze with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of beast till the 7 times pass by. This decision is the decree of the watchers, the verdict declared by the holy ones, so that the living will know that the Most High rules over the kingdom of mankind, and gives it to whom he wishes. setting over it the lowliest of men. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, saw. Now, Belshazzar, tell me the interpretation, because none of the wise men of my kingdom can interpret it for me. But you are able, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you. For a time, Daniel, who was also known as Belshazzar, was perplexed, and his thoughts alarmed him. So the king said, Belshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you. My lord, replied Belshazzar, may the dream apply to those who hate you, and its interpretation to your enemies. The tree you saw that grew large, that's some tact right there, by the way, because he's prepping what he's about to say. The tree you saw that grew large and strong, whose top reached the sky, was visible to all the earth, whose foliage was beautiful, whose fruit was abundant, providing food for all, under which the beasts of the field lived, and in whose branches the birds of the air nested. You, O king, are that tree. For you have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown to reach the sky. Your dominion extends to the ends of the earth. And you, O king, saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground, with the band of iron and bronze around it, and the tender grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven and graze with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass him by. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree that the Most High has issued against my lord, the king. You will be driven away from mankind. Your dwelling will be with the beasts of the field. You will feed on grass like an ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass you by until you acknowledge that the Most High rules over the kingdom of mankind and gives it to whom he wishes. As for the command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots, your kingdom will be restored to you as soon as you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, may my advice be pleasing to you, O king. Break away from your sins by doing what is right, and from your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed. Perhaps there will be an extension of your prosperity. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, the king exclaimed, is this not Babylon the Great, which I myself have built as a royal residence by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? While the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven. It is decreed to you, King Nebuchadnezzar, that the kingdom has departed from you. You will be driven away from mankind to live with the beasts of the field. You will feed on the grass like an ox, and 7 times will pass by you until you acknowledge that the Most High rules over the kingdom of mankind and gives it to whom he wishes. At that time, that sentence against Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from mankind. He ate grass like an ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of the heaven, until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle, and his nails like the claws of a bird. But at the end of those days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven, and my sanity was restored to me. Then I praised the Most High, and I honored and glorified him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are counted as nothing, and he does as he pleases with the army of heaven and with the peoples of the earth. There is no one who can restrain his hand or say to him, what have you done? At that same time, my sanity was restored. My honor and splendor returned to me from the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne, and surpassing greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, for all his works are true and all his ways are just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride.
It's just so wild and awesome that there's literally a chapter in the Bible written by a Babylonian king.
Isn't that wild?
It's like so cool. I mean, it's cool because of what, we see. It's because he's a believer. I mean, by the time he's writing it, he has been humbled.
Yeah, this is pretty wild. This would get you like completely killed and rewritten out of history.
Yeah.
In most kingdoms,
Yeah.
But since he was at the top of the food chain,
yeah, it's kind of a big deal.
So the question that a lot of people ask during this, where he did go crazy, for people think 7 times, they commonly translate that to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just go with that. I don't know, if it is 7 years, that's wonderful, right? If it's 7 weeks, that's something else. But it's interesting, no matter how much time passed, no one tried to take over his throne.
Yeah.
And his kingdom was restored to him. This in the ancient world, guys, is unheard of. This is unheard of. You already have people vying for the throne. It's Game of Thrones all day, every day.
Yeah.
In the ancient world, right? It's like someone's trying to kill you to take over your throne constantly. And it might be your son, as we see in, Isaiah 38 with the king of Assyria that tried to besiege Jerusalem. When he lost 195,000 of the soldiers and then went back to Assyria, his children killed him because of his disgrace and honor, losing to Yahweh. So and they took over his throne. This happened all the time. So the big question that people speculate all the time is, did Daniel run the kingdom while he was out, while he was crazy? I don't know. I'm sure
it's not out of the realm of possibility that there could have been a relationship developed between Daniel and the king, just like there was between Joseph and Pharaoh.
Right.
Why not?
So this right here from chapter 3 you read, the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, all the rulers of the provinces assembled for the dead. So
Yeah.
these are earlier what it said with Daniel in chapter 2, he was put over all these people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that would be like second in command.
yeah, he's like a Joseph.
He is like a Joseph.
He's like a Joseph,
Yeah.
right? So if number 1 goes out, who's there? Number 2. So it is a good deductive speculation to be like, well, Daniel's definitely fit for this job.
He's clearly in a position of closeness with the king to the point where he can tell the king to repent.
Yeah.
Like he can actually say to him, hey, you need to stop sinning. You need to serve the Most High God. Like he's got to get real with you, old Nebby. It's have some real talk here.
So even though Daniel tells him the interpretation of what's going to happen to him, and Nebuchadnezzar is like, I believe the Spirit of the Holy Gods is in you.
Yeah.
So he's trusting Daniel. But even though Daniel tells him the interpretation of what's going to happen to him, the king continues to just go on about his business
in pride
until a whole year passes, and then this hits.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? So now, why is this important? Like macro scale, zoom out, 30,000 foot level of what's going on here. What on a macro scale, why would this be a big deal for Yahweh to put Daniel in a position of influence to be over all the governors of Babylon and all the kingdoms of Babylon? When he goes out,
yeah,
he can maintain order and peace because these scattered exiles are being protected in that kingdom.
Yeah.
Like Jeremiah tells him, pray for the welfare of your kingdom, that you're going into exile because it's your life.
Yeah.
If that kingdom does bad, and if you're trying to create constant subterfuge and revolution in the place of your exile, you're going to be destroyed even faster, right? Pray for the welfare of your kingdom.
Yeah.
So here's Daniel. If he's still in this position, which it seems as he is, he's still in a position of being a governor over all these other governors, then he's definitely a part of the council of governing the entire affairs of ancient Babylon.
It's said in, I think, chapter 2 that Daniel stayed in the high court of the king.
Yes. Yes.
So even his 3 buddies, they were also made some sort of rulers, but like in different areas. But Daniel was like there in the court of the king. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about this when you and I studied this book 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That part hadn't really stood out to me until now. Also, the Joseph Pharaoh parallel hadn't stuck out to me at all because I just didn't consider, he would have to have a bit more of a close relationship to the king to be able to be saying to him that straight talk of like, you need to stop sinning, you need to repent.
Yeah.
So that that definitely just puts a different perspective on it. It just puts even more respect on Daniel's name,
It does. So with that in mind, we look at Daniel being in a position of rulership while Nebuchadnezzar is crazy for a time. Were the other exiles in the land, the kingdoms of Babylon, going, oh wait, who's ruling over us now? Daniel? Oh, he's a turncoat. Daniel. Oh, he signed over to the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Daniel,
you can't get into the highest courts of the king of Babylon unless you join the cabal.
Daniel's been compromised. He must have had the talk. They must have had the talk with him. Daniel's been compromised.
Yeah, I just don't think that was a conversation back then. I think there was a different understanding of these things back then.
Well, what is being repeated multiple times in this chapter? And until you acknowledge that heaven rules, until you acknowledge that it is Yahweh who establishes kings and kingdoms, until you acknowledge that He is the one, even if He's putting lowly people in this positions of power of these kingdoms. Right. And I think of people like Joe Biden.
Yeah, honestly, as I'm reading
Joe Biden was a Nebuchadnezzar.
It really feels like a lot of us, myself included, struggle with believing that God still has some sort of control over who is, in leadership over nations. Like,
It's a struggle. I agree.
it's a struggle.
We also see this in Romans 13 and First Peter as well.
Yeah.
The same, both Paul and Peter trying to preach the same message, that it's
Yeah.
Yahweh, that we are to
It's
serve
hard.
the nation we're in. We're to how does First Peter say it? Let me see if I can remember real quick.
I mean, I guess it's like, you just have to remember, like, he put Saul in place, assuming he knew how Saul would turn out, So yeah, it's definitely
it's chapter 4.
I think a lot of Christians, and especially in our crowd, more of the truther type of crowd, absolutely don't believe any form of this, that no, God is not involved at all in who comes into power. I am moving into a place of confliction about that, because it says what it says in the word. I can't argue with what the word says. So I don't know. I think that's why God has been bringing me more into this next level of maturity, involving how I actually speak about my world leaders and being careful about how I speak about them. Not because I could be wrong necessarily about, some of the fruit is clear, right? But just in terms of speaking curses over them,
Yeah.
ugh,
Yeah, like clearly
he's really convicted me on that.
If Trump builds a gold statue to himself, which you just can't put it past someone like Trump. But if he builds a gold statue to himself and asks me to worship it, I will not do so.
Yeah.
But if he calls me to have a meeting with him to ask me about the state of this fringe group of Christians in the United States called Torah observant communities, and someone threw my name in the hat to go speak with him as a representative of those communities,
Yeah.
I will treat him with respect while I speak to him.
Yeah.
Right. But while in that conversation, he asked me to forego my beliefs and start to worship, Zionism.
Right.
I will say no.
Yeah.
Right. And suffer whatever persecution comes. First Peter chapter 2, 13 and 14 says, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to the king as the supreme authority, or to governors as those sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right.
Mm.
So there is a sense of, and this is in this, there is a sense of understanding, even in New Testament times, that when Paul is 2 years, Paul was under arrest and pleading with King Agrippa, trying to teach him the gospel, explain to him Jesus and the kingdom. And it says that King Agrippa was just waiting for a bribe the whole time. He was entertaining Paul, waiting for a bribe. Now, during that time, did Paul say, "Oh, I need to foment a violent revolution and break out of these fetters"? And during that time, did he go to the King Agrippa and say, you're a wicked man of Babylon and you need to repent? Like he definitely told him to repent because he explained Jesus to him.
Right.
But did he do it with vitriol and disrespect? No. He was like, "Oh, you're King Agrippa. With deference, I speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm waiting to go see Caesar. I appeal to Caesar.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, that I have your ear, I'm going to be respectful to you so that you can hear this good news."
Right.
So in the same way, Daniel is abiding in that same spirit of the law.
And here's the thing. We do see repentance from Nebuchadnezzar eventually. Like there is a turnaround. There clearly is a point in his life where he realizes he is not the one to be worshipped. And he brings it all back to walking in pride. Like he even acknowledges the root of all his sin was this pride. So I think that's also, I spoke a little bit last week about having us as a people, how we should have a little more hope. And I would include this in that encouragement, because, it may seem like every person in politics at some certain level is just wholly sold out to the dark kingdom and there's no coming back. But isn't that what Satan wants people to believe? Isn't that what he tells people who sell their soul to him? That, oh, now I own it. You cannot have it back. That's the greatest lie told in this generation with this entertainment and political industry that we have, that Satan does seem to operate in. Isn't that his message, that people can be too far gone? Now we know that there can be people who are too far gone, and at some point judgment has to come, right? But what is our attitude and our heart posture supposed to be towards those people? Is it supposed to look at them and say and feel they're hopeless? There's no point in even praying for them, let alone telling them the message of the gospel. Is that supposed to be the heart we're supposed to have? I don't think so.
We're not supposed to
I
stand in
think we're
condemnation.
at least supposed to pray for them and refrain from speaking curses over them, at the very least.
Yeah. It again, yeah, it's if Daniel had taken the attitude, and the 3 Hebrews with him had taken the attitude that we see amongst the conspiracy crowd today, which encompasses so many Christians
Yeah.
and Torah observant Christians, then these guys would have been killed in the first chapter. There wouldn't be a book of Daniel.
That's very true. That's very true.
And they would have had this positive effect, this influence.
Yeah.
The same thing with Mordecai and Esther.
Mm.
If they had not shown deference and respect to the king, who knows what Haman would have got away with?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So same thing with Joseph, right? I mean, he wouldn't be in a position to save all these people and have this incredible idea to create food for 7 years for all the other countries as well.
Yeah.
God would have had to figure some other way out to do it. If Joseph would have had pride and would have been like, oh, you guys are beneath me. I come from a family. You're going to all bow down to me. And this. Instead, he didn't say it with pride. Once he went into exile, he just served where he was, how he could, endured the persecution he did, waited for his moments to shine,
right,
and continue to walk in faithfulness to the covenant. And so we have a ton of examples of how we're to live our life today as we're scattered amongst the nations.
Yeah.
Even Christ said, give Caesar what's Caesar's.
Yeah.
Christ didn't uphold or go through a violent revolution over, Herod, who was the idiomatic ruler in the province over him. Nor did he try to overthrow Governor Pilate from the Romans.
Yeah.
Nor did he, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nor did he encourage people with this great rebellion to remove the Roman control over the Israelite people.
That's what the Jews were expecting.
Yeah.
To this day, they're still expecting an actual literal physical military leader as their Messiah. So look, guys, this is just stuff to reflect on, there's a few people out there who get really frustrated and upset with us when we try to encourage reflecting on how we see these men of God who are in the Hall of Fame of faith acting while they're dispersed into wicked Babylonian, Assyrian, whatever in nations that they're in, and how they handle themselves with leadership, how they handle themselves in leadership in these actual pagan governments. This is some profound stuff, and this is some really edifying examples for us to consider as we now understand. I think for the first time in Christianity, people are starting to wake up and understand this judgment we're under, this dispersion that we're in, and that we're still in the land of our enemies, quote unquote. And there are certain commandments that still apply, although how do we do some of these things while we're in the dispersion? At first glance, it can seem like there's not really much instruction for us in the scriptures on what to do, while we're scattered without a temple and a priesthood. But actually, there are. They're all through these major and minor prophets who are literally in the dispersion, speaking to us and showing us how to behave. So it's just encouragement, guys. It's just encouragement to reflect on these things. We're not trying to browbeat anyone. We're not trying to shame anyone. Sean and I, me especially, I'm still coming out of these mindsets, right? I'm having God show me these mindsets on a daily basis where he's like challenging me and my rebellious spirit that's not rebellious against him, but certainly rebellious against all my, overlords, all that sarcasm and cynicism I use to speak about them with. And God has been challenging me on all that. And it's directly through showing me how his men truly acted in the presence of people like this in times past. So I just think it's something that's worthy of reflection and meditating on, and trying to imitate these men as they imitate Christ.
So heaven does rule over the kingdoms of men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As Daniel's trying to reiterate, and as Nebuchadnezzar admits, this was the lesson he learned.
Yeah.
So imagine being Nebuchadnezzar before Daniel came in, right? Or any other pagan society and kingship with all these other governors, satraps, prefects, governors, wise men, counselors, advisors. And you're like in the thick of trying to run a nation, and you forget, because Nebuchadnezzar has forgotten or has never learned that heaven actually rules over the kingdoms of men.
Yeah.
Right. So, and will install people whom he wants in places where he wants. Right. Now there is this top-down rule, but we know that literally heaven has not come to the earth yet,
Right.
per the prayer of Christ in Matthew 6 and per Christ himself physically ruling the nations with the rod of iron
Yeah.
and shattering the teeth in the nations as pottery, as prophesied when he actually shows up. But there is this type of thing, whereas like Nebuchadnezzar says, I saw a watcher come down from heaven saying this was the decree of the holy ones.
Yeah.
That's what he says at the top, right?
Yeah.
So a watcher come down out of heaven. The watcher says further up here, right? Yeah.
Yes. You
Did it-
scroll too fast, baby.
No.
Look at 17.
Yeah, the verdict declared by the holy ones,
Yeah.
right? Which will include the Most High, obviously. But his angels come to carry out the message
Right.
as he comes down from heaven, right? So this is something in ancient Babylon. They believe that the firmament was made of bricks, and that it enclosed them, and that above them was celestial ones, holy ones.
Okay.
They didn't talk about them that much because they worship the false gods below the firmament, but they did acknowledge that there was a thing there. They knew that there
I
was
guess
something.
they would have to know
yes.
angels are there because angels are interacting.
Yes. But again, it depends on who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
So Nebuchadnezzar, if you growing up without being informed of this stuff, then here's his moment to learn. You're gonna learn today, right?
Yeah.
So here's his moment to learn through Daniel, through this vision of the angels coming down and sharing this vision with him. So even though he made it to the height of the Babylonian Empire, ruling over 127 different provinces, which was the dominant empire on the earth at the time. He didn't rule over China, Japan, and Korea, but over most of the known world at the time.
Yeah.
And he still hadn't learned this simple fact, right? Because he wasn't raised in the ways of Yahweh.
Yeah.
He was raised on his father, Nebuchadnezzar the First,
Yeah.
right? So with all the Babylonian gods and their magic and their deception. So here he is having this major mind blow moment, right? Coming to reality of how life really works, by the way. As we're going to read with Bel and the Dragon, that Daniel has already shown him that both the dragon you worship, which represents Satan, and Baal, they're not powerful either.
Yeah.
Like they're just false gods too. So they're only as powerful as the intent and the power you give them. Right. So stop giving it to him. So he's having a complete theological overhaul through these events in his heart and mind. But now do you understand, put yourself in his mindset before he had this overhaul. And now do you understand why the nations rage in vain?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yahweh sits and laughs in the heaven that these nations plot against him. Because without this knowledge that, did you not know that you actually you can plot and plan all you want. You can try to find votes for Democrats and Republicans all you want. You can do as much as you can to try to overthrow governments and kingdoms and be the Illuminati and try to have this subversive control, and all this as much as you want. But do you not really know that God can just do whatever he wants whenever he wants? Yeah. Have you forgotten that heaven rules this place? That you are not above heaven, heaven's above you. Yeah. But if you don't even think that there are people living in heaven because you've been sold heliocentrism. Right. That's why it's called a philosophy, guys. Heliocentrism is a philosophy, according to the people who promoted it in the 18th and 19th century. It is a philosophy. It's built on philosophy. They can't prove any of it. But what does it do? It gets you to forget that heaven rules. Yeah. It gets you to forget there is even a God in heaven. Yeah. Because then you don't even know where God is. Right. You think all around you is empty, vacuumless space. So we are still under the same deceptions that Nebuchadnezzar was. Yeah. And we must all learn the same lesson that not to walk in pride. Also to remember that heaven rules. Yahweh will put in command anyone he wants at different nations any times. I don't understand all of his decisions. I just have to trust him. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, the current events, you've got the Christians being martyred in Nigeria. I don't understand why those things happen. I do know Christ warned us these things would happen, because if we follow the master, they persecuted him. They'll definitely persecute his servants too. But at the same time, why doesn't Yahweh come through like he does with Daniel saving all the Jewish people in this time, or Esther saving all the Jewish people at that time? Like, why doesn't he come through at all times for everybody? I would assume he comes through a lot for a lot of people. Yeah. And then we have these pockets we see in 20th century Russia with Stalin killing all the Christians and Jews. Yeah. And, we have these parts of martyrdom that we see throughout history and in modernity today, still happening in China, by the way. Never
In
forget.
Nigeria.
I just said Nigeria
Yeah.
earlier. So never forget that there's large scale Christian persecution happening on the earth today. Why does God still allow that? I honestly don't have the best answer for you. I don't know. There's something within his sovereignty that allows that. I'm not sure exactly why he's allowing that, but he does. And I just know that we all have to learn this lesson, is what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
We cannot tell ourselves just because we are living in a nation that doesn't worship the laws of Yahweh, that we are not to join ourselves with the demonic left-leaning communist mentality that wants to violently overthrow through revolution the governing structure that you're in. The governing structure that you're in has allowed for you to live in this incredible land of abundance and wealth
Honestly,
in relative safety that most people
Yeah.
have never enjoyed for all of
Yeah,
history.
honestly, this is another paradigm that God has really been challenging for me lately is we have lived in a place that has protected our religion so well that it's hard for us to fathom reading stories about people like Paul and some of his disciples being stoned and beaten for the name of Christ and getting up. And instead of getting up and saying, we need freedom of religion, they get up and they rejoice that they were found worthy to be beaten and stoned for Christ. We've lived in such a wonderful, safe bubble here that most of us don't have that mentality. I don't like the idea of persecution. Most of us don't like the idea of being persecuted for our faith. So what has happened, through the birth of our nation and the spirits that have been instilled in us through our national identity, that now we can't fathom the concept of rejoicing to be persecuted for his name. Like that's something God's been challenging me with. Like, are you going to run when they come for you? Or are you going to put your neck out and rejoice? Like that, because so many of us have been, I really think that Satan has really done a good work in the truther community and down the rabbit hole with instilling a lot of fear into us, because so many of us are more focused on how we're going to protect ourselves from the beast system instead of thinking what an honor it will be to be ousted by the beast system and eventually hunted down and killed for our faith. Like that is a totally foreign worldview for most of us. That is a totally foreign perspective for most of us included.
Yeah,
we
no,
have we have a
we have
prepper pantry. We have plans for how to protect ourselves from tyranny.
we do teach on self-defense for yourself, for your family, for your community. That we're not saying you should just let people come and steal, take, and kill you.
No, yes, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about specific persecution.
Yeah, when it comes to the potentiality of world war, specifically when the beast goes and fights against all nations, it seems as if he shows up with his own army to do so. Though he's not getting the UN to come in and try to invade the United States. So, but the point is, there is common sense into the aspect of self-preservation versus self-defense versus moments of actually being captured and being persecuted for your faith. So, but at the same time, if you do get persecuted for your faith, are you going to go out like the apostles did? Are you going to go out like Christ did? Or are we going to go out like people we see in other parts of history, like the 3 Hebrews were willing to do in chapter 3? They were willing to be like,
they've laid there and let themselves be bound up.
Yeah. You get the ropes tight enough. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just too tight for you. No, I'm good.
Do a couple extra knots down there, guys.
Knowing that the men who threw them in died. Like that's how hot it was, So they probably knew that it was, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, they just suffer from heat exhaustion or like just crispify their lungs or something.
Vaporized
I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, man, I think that it is definitely a sense of maturity in this walk as we see these mature men trusted by God to put these positions of high influence, to where none of these men are better than Christ, and Christ was unceremoniously and publicly humiliated in his martyrdom,
and voluntarily.
And he went to it.
He went to his death voluntarily.
Say, your will be done, Father, not my will. So like, we pray that we don't all have to endure that, but if the time comes, are we ready for that? In the meantime, Christ did instruct there'll be time when you need to get a sword. Okay.
Yes.
But at other times he said, do not be surprised if they persecute you.
Yeah.
Right. To which we see in the scenario of the apostles, a lot of people bring this up, and I'm having to say this because of some of the things you talked about, because I know that what people are going to say. A lot of people, this is a common argument people bring up all the time. We're not saying that you should just, anytime you see a potential Christian martyrdom, that you just go volunteer yourself as tribute. We're not saying that.
Right.
What we're saying is what Christ tried to teach was, in Christ's life, he didn't pick up the sword because it was appointed for him to die so that he could get to his priesthood upon resurrection. That's not appointed for the average person. Okay. So this is why in the days of the apostles, there was moments where Paul and Peter were in persecution. They were being told by the Holy Spirit, don't go here, don't go there, because if you do, you'll get killed. Did they just ignore the Holy Spirit and go there to get killed because, oh, I'm going to suffer for Christ? Or did they just intentionally move away because they were trying to preserve their life as long as possible to have the maximum effect in their life to preach the gospel as much as they could? There's a difference, right? Were they willing to defend themselves? Sure. Yes. Yes. It wasn't the appointed time in Luke chapter 4 for Jesus to be killed, so he did not let them throw him off a cliff. He left amongst them. It was supernatural power, apparently, because he just walked straight through the mob that was trying to throw him off a cliff. He just didn't willingly say, oh, you want to persecute me right now? Okay, cool. So he understood through his prayer life and his maturity there was an appointed time for his martyrdom. At other times, he evaded martyrdom. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the point of what I'm trying to say is that's within the context of the Roman Empire having autonomous full control over the people in Judea. Okay? To the point where when they did try rebellion in 70 AD, the Romans came in and killed 500,000 people. Okay, so this is where they tested that full control and they lost that battle.
Yeah.
Okay, out of their pride and their foolishness. Christ didn't teach his apostles to do that. He taught them in their moment. There may be times when you need to take up a sword, but in other times you may be persecuted. Don't be surprised. They persecute me, they'll persecute you.
Yeah.
But there are places in history where people are not under the autonomous control of a overarching Roman Empire government. And there are places, and this is the way I feel about this country right here and now.
Yeah.
The country here now does have foundations built upon biblical principles. And we have had a sense of protection for religious freedoms.
Yeah.
We're not in a position where we have a king that is a full-on tyrant that wants to, that can control every part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So within that context, we already are a self-governing people within our federal, state, local communities, that kind of stuff, even down to county sheriffs.
Look,
okay?
as cynical as we can be about it, it's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
I feel blessed.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying that the way that Christian persecution will look in the United States is going to take a lot more breaking down of the government institutions that we already have in place, which means violent revolutionary warfare. And if it gets to that point and the good people who are trying to represent the biblical principles that have been installed in our government, if that side of the conflict loses, and then you go into captivity and exile, that's a different scenario where you may be persecuted. And I hope that you honor Christ in your persecution. But before that time period, you are fighting for your own autonomous principles that you've already established in your nation, as you have not willingly given yourself over in governance. All I'm trying to say is there is the people in Judea were living out prophecy in the days of Christ and the apostles. They were in a prophesied time of being ruled over by their enemies because of their rebellion. Christ showed up to a darkened land per Isaiah 9 prophecy. He did not show up to a righteous people. That's why prophets are usually sent, by the way.
Yeah.
Is they're sent to a people that are in great rebellion. So this is where, what does Christ say to the leaders of the people, the chief priests, scribes, elders, and the Pharisees? You guys are whitewashed tombs. You're liars. You are burdens to the people. You are not good leaders. You're not following the law, right? So so Christ was in a unique time of prophecy to where they were going to be ruled over to the point where the Levites, their righteous governance had abandoned them and were duplicitous with the Roman Empire. So therefore they were going to be suffering the consequences the same way that the Israelites did in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. That's why they were finally dispersed again, and the temple was destroyed a second time. So Christ knew the time period that he was in. His disciples knew the time period that they were in. They knew what happens next. And so they weren't just trying to join in the many different revolts from the Jews that happened between the years of AD 30 to AD 70. There were many different revolts, and they were all squashed until they were finally destroyed and dispersed as a people, as a whole. So,
Yeah, again, Yahweh used a pagan nation to fulfill prophecy there with that final scattering.
yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, guys, it's we see pacifists that we've had on our channel before that they say, oh, you should never take up arms. You should never defend
Yeah.
yourself. You should just let the guy come into your house and do whatever with your wife and children and kill you after he's made you watch him do whatever with your wife and children, because you're suffering for Christ. No, that's not what the Bible says. You can defend yourself. The law of God, Exodus 22, even tells you how to defend yourself when someone breaks into your home. There are boundaries that are set up and determined by the peoples on the earth that God honors. Those are also a part of God's law, and he expects those boundaries to be enforced. So that is something that is a righteous thing to enforce, as long as you're doing righteousness within those boundaries, right? And your intent is to be righteous, as opposed to, just being another sect of Baal worship. So what I just hope to encourage people is this is not what I see constantly when this issue comes up of martyrdom versus fighting back, so to speak. When do you do either one?
Mm-hmm.
So I constantly see people want to say, well, Christians are just supposed to be pacifists. They're just supposed to take it and be killed wherever they can be killed. That's a literal demon talking to you at that point. Like that's not what the Bible says at all. Christians are supposed to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. We're supposed to be wise in how we deal with this according to God's wisdom. And God's wisdom teaches you that you can defend your home and your life, your family. You can defend your community, your region, the people around you, particularly the innocents, from people that are wicked, people not doing his law, who want to invade you, to oppress and take over you.
There's also a difference between actual persecution and just general wickedness done by world leaders and governments.
Right.
I was actually looking into this topic of the Romani people, the Romas that are, I guess it's a slur now. I didn't know gypsy was a slur. Like gypsy was not a slur growing up in the 90s, but I guess now it's considered a slur. But I was looking into their journey through history because it's quite an interesting story. And it's actually very similar to the Jews in that they were a nomadic people group that did not have a home nation. And they were persecuted and expelled from countries just like the Jews were. There has been a massive campaign against the Roma people all the way up until today, actually. And I was looking into it because I was like, why is this? Is it because they were Christian? And while a lot of Roma today are Christian, it's not necessarily that they started out that way. They kind of adapted into religions into the different countries that they would travel into. So you have these groups of people throughout time that are persecuted in a sense, but it's not persecution in the biblical sense that, oh, these governments hate this people group because they are Christian and they follow Christ, right? These people aren't necessarily consistently a people group who follow Christ. A majority of them are today, but throughout history, they weren't persecuted because of their faith or anything. They were persecuted, it seems like, because of their race. It seems like it was actually a very racist thing.
It's among gypsies.
Yes, there might have also, been an actual problem within the gypsy community of the fruit that the gypsies produced and the problems they may have caused in the places that they went. But
same thing for the Jews.
Yeah, but regardless, by the time Hitler, because the gypsies are considered the forgotten Holocaust, because nobody talks about the fact that Hitler went after gypsies way before he went after Jews. And it was all on the racial ideology. Once Darwin came around and started with this race concept, and then Blavatsky added to the race concept with this spiritual aspect of it and theosophy. This is where Hitler got his idea of Aryan race. It comes from theosophy and Blavatsky. Then you have these people who are persecuted strictly based on their race at this point in history, where it's like they are seen as a degenerate, actual genetically degenerate group of people. So also, I just want to be clear that there is a difference between being actually persecuted for your faith in Christ and, having to make a choice between serving Christ or obeying this government, or you're going to die. That kind of persecution versus the kind of stuff that we just see with the rise and fall of nations and revolutions. And, Christians happen to be some of the very first who are taken out when, if you actually look into communism and how communism, comes out in countries, how it's spread. People in the church are often the very first to go, but a lot of times it's not specifically because of their faith. It's more about specifically with Bolsheviks, it was about power dynamic because they saw the church as part of government, which they kind of were. So yeah, that's also one thing I would like to clarify as well, that yes, there is a difference between actual persecution for your faith in Christ versus just plain wickedness from world leaders being a big bulldozer that happens to crush a bunch of us.
Yeah, for sure. Nathan, thank you so much for the support, brother. He's saying, hey guys, I'm having trouble with a few groups we attend. They teach Zionism and from Talmud. Try to discuss with leaders, but they don't want that. I need to explain to my family why incorrect each time. Any advice? Well, we can give you the general overview on why we disagree with Zionism and teachings from the Talmud, but without any specific examples, I can't give you for like each time why they're incorrect to teach to your family. But just as a general overview, we disagree with Zionism because it's like a 100-plus-year-old modern political movement built upon trying to establish something as a particular geographical nation state for Israel in the Middle East, whereas only Yahweh promises he will establish that again in the future through the return of Christ, not through the slow migration of supposed Jewish people. Like they won't even let you do a DNA test.
Let you do the DNA
to even find out whether they're truly either way. But yeah, so the point is, all the political upheaval, everything we've seen from Zionism in the past 100 years, none of that fits the prophecy of when Yahweh himself, through the return of his son, establishes Israel and Jerusalem and Zion and rules all nations, specifically through his father's house that comes down after the second coming, the New Jerusalem, in which all nations gravitate to and learn the law of God. So none of those qualifiers have been seen in the last 20th century, the last 100 years. The political movements, the buyers of the land, the backings, the military persuasion and overt domination of nations around it, the whole concept, everything about their stated intentions and the history of what they've done thus far, none of it matches the prophecies about how the Father institutes the nation of Israel again through his son and the coming of his tabernacle forever. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I mean, really, this is a topic that could be a whole video on its own. There are so many problems with Zionism and so many reasons it's anti-Torah. I would just encourage you, if you're really trying to, get the leadership to see this, I would encourage you to look up, there are sects of actual Orthodox Jews who are anti-Zionism because even they understand the prophecies of the regathering. It's through, I don't know if they understand that it's the resurrection, but they definitely understand that it's through God and it's not through politics and the buying of land. There's also the issue that nobody really thinks about, that it was all of Abraham's descendants that were given the land between the two rivers, not just Israel, and certainly not just the tribe of Judah, because Judah, if they are Judah, they have co-opted, they have appropriated that name Israel. Israel does not represent just that tribe of Judah and Benjamin. Israel meant all 12 tribes. So the land was not only just given to Israel, the land was given to all of Abraham's descendants. So in Deuteronomy, when they're getting ready to go into the land, they're starting on this journey, God is telling them, you cannot go through this territory. You cannot take this territory. You cannot take this territory because I gave this territory to Esau as an inheritance. I gave this territory to Lot as an inheritance, to the Moabites and the Ammonites. The wilderness of Paran seems to be the territory that was given to Ishmael, who a lot of people believe the Arabs are descended from. So a lot of Zionists, have pitted, themselves against all Arabs as if all Arabs don't have a right to be there. And it's like, if you believe they're from Ishmael, then, and if this is just about bloodlines and not about covenant and obeying the covenant, then all these Arabs have rights to the land too. And you can also look at the time of Joshua is often referenced by Zionists who want to take all of the land between the two rivers. If you look at the allotments given under Joshua, Judah doesn't even have that whole entire area of Israel. All 12 tribes were given that area. Judah only has a small area. Well, it's actually a very large area, but compared to what they have now in the southern area of the kingdom. So that's just another detail that is completely ignored by Zionists, that they act like Judah is all of Israel. Judah is Israel. The Israel are the Jews. Jews are Israel. There's no such thing as 12 tribes and 10 scattered tribes. And then they don't even mention the fact that Abraham had a whole bunch of other descendants that have bloodline rights to the land. So if we're going on just bloodlines, you got a problem with all the Arabs who are there, who tradition says are descended from Ishmael. So that's just one aspect of why this is an incorrect doctrine and why Sean and I are not Zionists. So
Mic check, mic check. Can you guys hear us now? We're apparently muted when I turned off the other camera because it wouldn't focus.
Oh, no.
It apparently somehow it turned off the sound, even though all the sound says it's on.
Crud.
So mic check, mic check.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and take my opportunity to say bye-bye.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with this. Still muted. We gotta leave. I gotta back out. I don't know what's going on. Put one in the chat if you can hear us.
YouTube must have cut you off for talking about Zionism.
Yeah, because I didn't turn off the soundboard. I didn't mute us. They were saying we were muted for like the last 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crap. I don't remember if I said anything profound.
I think I was just answering the question about the Revelation 9. So go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and head out, guys. I'm going to let Sean. I'm going to leave Sean to do the Q&A with you guys. I'm a little pooped out from 2 hours already, and I'd like maybe 10, 15 minutes of alone mommy time before Levi gets up, and he'll probably be getting up very soon. So I'm going to go chill. I'm going to put the stream on downstairs, and go ahead and let Sean do all the questions today. So thank you guys for having me. Please check the link in the description. We do have Dustin Hall's Give, Send, Go down there if you're looking for a place to give alms, just as a reminder if you weren't here at the beginning. And I love you. And I'll just see you when you're done.
Okay, sweetie.
Have a kiss.
I love you, sweetie.
Bye, guys. Can you hand me
Yeah.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah. Hey, Nathan, thank you again for the support, brother. I appreciate that. It's healthy to stay under those teachings, especially when met with accusation. But is it healthy to stay under these teachings, especially when met with accusation? Well, brother, yeah. If you're in a fellowship with other believers where they're just accusing you of stuff, that's a totally different dynamic. You don't want to be in a fellowship where they're just accusing you. 1 second. Let me change. So again, I'm not sure what your conversation was like when you said, okay, that's not going to work either. I'm not sure what your conversation was like when you brought up Talmud and Zionism. I mean, I don't know what they're teaching you specifically from the Talmud. I personally don't recommend it. There's plenty of scriptures to be teaching from. I don't think we need to dip into the Talmud for any of that stuff. But as far as the Zionism thing, I mean, if that's something where you just disagree that the modern nation state of Israel, you don't think that that's any fulfillment of prophecy, and you don't believe that that's ordained by God for what they're doing over there, then, if that's your stated vocal disagreement with this group of people, and then they in turn start accusing you of malintent or, being a reprobate or heathen, I mean, that's going to be a toxic environment for you anyway. That's very poor leadership already if they're allowing anything like that to happen. So I would just, for the sake of your own edification and fellowship amongst other believers, and considering you've already tried to address your issues with leadership, then you may want to find another place. If they can't go back to normal, if they can't do a reset on themselves and show some self-control and discipline and walk in love, and be like, oh, okay, well, we disagree with your opinion on this, but we're still going to treat you with love and show you love and continue to teach the word of God and not a political movement. If they can't reset back to that, well, then it's probably not going to be a good learning environment for you and your family. So earlier I was answering Emmanuel's question about Revelation 9. I think that's when I went on mute. And all I was trying to say was we do not teach that the locust-like hybrid things that come out of the pit in Revelation 9 that have the stinger tails, we do not teach that they're just going to force people to take their stinger tails. What I was suggesting in my previous Investigating Babylon series is that I feel like the stinger tail is the implementation mechanism for the mark of the beast and what this mark of the beast thing is. Not that people, that these locust type thing force people down and sting them and force the mark of the beast on them. No, but I think it's an army of things whom simultaneously have within their within their tail, within their hybrid bodies, within their tail is the mechanism for the mark of the beast. That is, you would still have to willfully take the mark of the beast. So it's just my thought on that. All right, Sick and Tired is asking, what's the difference between honor versus respect in your parents? I actually say honor your parents and mother. Is there a difference between honor and respect? I think they're used synonymously in a lot of occasions. Honoring can be a little, in my understanding, honoring is has greater involvement, right? You speak and think respectfully of your parents. You can represent them respectfully to others. You can speak of them respectfully to them and to others. But then honoring them may go a little further as far as, okay, like Christ says, well, it may need be, there may be a time in your life when you need to help your parents with something. But the Pharisees in Mark chapter 7, the Pharisees were tricking people and saying, oh, whatever value that you were going to give to your parents to honor them, instead give it to the temple as Corban, and that'll be a greater honor to God. And so then the temple gets richer, but the parents who need the help are now still without help because the money's been redirected, right, for the sake of piety. But yet the commandments tell us to honor our parents, right? So in that application that Christ is using, the concept of honoring your father and mother included the idea of financial help to them because they needed it, which the Pharisees are trying to steal that financial help. So I think there is they can be used synonymously, but the fuller context of how to honor your parents will include some sort of behavior on your part, not just how you think and speak of them, but will include you helping them in some way, usually, to honor them. Now, if your parent, now we've dealt with this in the past, if your parents are trying to get you to do wickedness, if your parents are being wicked, and not upholding Yahweh's ways, you would still want to do your best to respect and honor them to the point where it's, you're not you're not indulging them in their sin, or you're not allowing their sin to disrupt you and cause you to sin. So there's a maturity line there as far as honoring your mother and father versus, are they actively antagonistic against you in sinful ways or trying to hurt or harm you? I'm not gonna, if my father somehow turned ravenously murderous and decided he wanted to hit me with a meat cleaver, I'm not going to go up respectfully because he asked me to walk up next to him so he can hit me with the meat cleaver. I'm not going to do that, right? That's not respect. That is indulging in the ravings of a mad person filled with sin versus, okay, here's, there's some fundamental, a conscientious application of what's really happening here is the person, if your parents are trying to get you to indulge in sin or indulge their sin, then you must draw the line, right? Because now they've stepped out of the realm of somebody that you can allow to be governed over you, right? So, yeah, there's some thoughts that have to go into this as far as, you don't just take it with a blanket and apply it all the same. But I do know that I can read something real quick from the book of Sirach. I think it's in chapter 2. Talks about your parents, honoring your parents. And specifically, I think it would apply to a lot of us in modern cultures where we deal with Alzheimer's with our parents. See if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's actually in Sirach chapter 3, verse 10 through 16. It says, "Do not glory in your father's disgrace, for that's no glory to you. The Father's glory is glory also for oneself. They multiply sin who demean their mother. My son, be steadfast in honoring your father. Do not grieve him as long as he lives. Even if his mind fails, be considerate of him. Do not revile him because you are in your prime. Kindness to a father will not be forgotten. It will serve as a sin offering. It will take lasting root. In time of trouble, it will be recalled to your advantage. Like warmth upon frost, it will melt away your sins. Those who neglect their father are like blasphemers. Those who provoke their mother are accursed by the Creator. So that's in the sense of, your father and mother, they're not trying to kill you. They're not trying to get you to financially fund their sin, and they're not trying to get you to sin and turn away from your faith in Yahweh. But they're just living. They're just being your mother and father, and they need your help because they're getting old, or it's, our disposition of how we treat them. Hold the Front is asking, I'm wondering how you reconcile Romans 9, 10 through 13 with you. Okay. Okay. This seems, sister, this question might require a little bit of research here. I don't have these verses exactly memorized. Seems to say the promise is established before any deeds, whereas Jubilees seems to say it was because of Esau's deeds. Yeah. I'm not sure. I would have to read the context. I don't know if I apologize, sister. I'm not going to be able to. I want to try to get to more questions. This one's going to take some time to read the context of both passages and make sure that I'm cross check and comparing to make sure everything's good here. So I apologize. You're welcome to drop that question to me in email, and I'll have more time to give you a more well-researched answer that probably would hit on all the points you might be looking for. Okay. Sorry about that. Try to get some of the questions that I might be able to answer quickly. Char Steele, thank you so much for the super. I appreciate that. St. Sean, was Hitler a follower of Aleister Crowley? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it wasn't Aleister Crowley kind of later. Wasn't he in the 60s and 70s? I don't think that Hitler, if Hitler was still alive, I wouldn't have any idea if he followed Aleister Crowley, because he would be in hiding if he was still alive and somewhere else on the earth. But during the days of what we know about him before his supposed death, I don't think Aleister Crowley was making his rounds and out and about in the society yet. So I don't, at least if I'm not mistaken. Singing Lenny's asking, thanks, Sean. This is extremely edifying after a week of reading Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Acts. Okay, awesome, sister. Thanks you. Yeah, hopefully it's a blessing to you. Oh, Deidre said you stopped going to a fellowship because they mock biblical cosmology. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, sister. These believers are on different learning scale, right? Different learning curves, all across the earth right now. So everywhere under the firmament, they're all under different learning curves. And it's just sad that, with a topic like that, when it comes to biblical cosmology, it's like there's actual definitions for these words in the Bible, used consistently in the Bible in context. It's not like you're just inserting an idea into something. Like there's actual descriptions of the firmament, circle of the earth, the enclosure of the firmament, separation between light and dark, on top of the land of the earth and the seas. There's actual descriptions of this stuff, so yeah, it's really sad when Christians take that route of mockery instead of just respectfully and sincerely dealing with what Yahweh's word says, right? Because remember, it's not a mocker against you. They're actually mocking God's word. So that's where it becomes really sad. Emmanuel, we got Levi circumcised. I think it was $800. I think it was 800 because we had to, he had to travel like 4 hours one way to our house to do the procedure and then back. So, it was a full day for him, plus travel expenses, that kind of thing, plus the actual medical cost and all that stuff. So it probably would have been much, much cheaper had I lived in the same city as him. But where we live in the mountains in Wyoming, it's like, you got to travel to us. We're not near we're not near Denver, and I think the guy was coming up from Denver. So I'm sure if we'd lived in Denver, it'd have been much less, but that's what he charged us. Oh, thank you, sweetie. I thought Crowley was a lot later in the 16s and 70s, but yeah, I have no clue if Hitler followed Crowley. So sorry about that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. My voice is going out. I'm going to go. We'll shut down the stream. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Please consider Dustin Hall's family. If it's on your heart, if God puts it on your heart to find someone to give to out of your abundance, this is Deuteronomy 15. This is a part of our walk with Christ, that we give alms to people that are in need, and this is a genuine need for a good family. So, keep that in mind. It's in the video description below is Give, Send, Go. And we appreciate you drawing your attention to that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like, share, and subscribe if you like this video and this content. We'll see you next time. You have a good Sabbath.